Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber for Breakfast. We're now on our fifth episode of 2025. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast. Well, here in DC, there is never a dull moment, just as a emergency vehicle just went by. Late Monday night, the Trump administration issued a memorandum to temporarily pause agency grant loans and other financial assistance programs. So yesterday, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, issued further guidance that the funding pause is limited to the previously issued executive orders, which did not impact the heart of broadband funding. And late yesterday, a U.S. district judge temporarily blocked the administration from implementing the funding freeze until February 3rd at 5 p.m. to really provide some time for everybody to figure this out. And also, there's a bunch of lawyers that want to start filing things and so forth. But so far, so good for broadband. And everybody I've talked to up here in DC is, wants our funding to get deployed and make sure that every American is connected. Last night I joined the PCCA dinner on Capitol Hill, where Senator Black from Tennessee, who serves on the Senate Commerce Committee, outlined a plan to strip out all the bureaucratic red tape and DEI programs from the NTI BEAD program in an effort to expand participation and focus this funding on broadband deployment. She was very clear that neither the Senate Commerce Committee nor DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is looking to claw back any BEAD funding, but to remove obstacles, accelerate the program, and ensure that funding goes to broadband deployment. She will be part of today's Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee hearing to consider the nomination of Howard Lutnick to be the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. Among other issues, we anticipate at this hearing they'll be addressing broadband grant programs, including BEAD. We can anticipate a very busy next 2 years in DC as the Trump administration and Congress will be working hard to get a lot accomplished. We will continue to work with the administration and Congress and do our best to net out what all this means to you, our members. We're now 2 weeks away from our first regional Fiber Connect workshop in San Antonio on Tuesday, February 11th. And registration for this event went crazy this past week. So if you haven't registered, please do so ASAP, and you can go to our website to register. Then the following day, on Wednesday, February 12th, we'll go from San Antonio to Austin to meet with the Texas State Legislature. So if you want to join us for both those events, that would be great. After San Antonio, we'll be in Philly, March, hopefully celebrating the victory from the Super Bowl. Then we'll be in Fiber Day on the Hill in April. Fiber Connect 2025 is in Nashville, June 1st to 4th, so you're not going to miss that. Then we'll be up in Anchorage in July, Toronto in August, Spokane in September, Scottsdale in October, Kansas City in November, and then we'll get together with our premier members in Palm Springs, December 8th and 9th. So that brings us to today's Fiber for Breakfast session with Jennifer Kent, the Vice President of Research at Park Associates, who's going to be discussing the Smart Home in 2025, Outlook and Opportunity. Before I formally introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from our team, who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you everybody who's joined us today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again also thank Wesco, our platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast. Now, please keep in mind all participants are in listen-only mode today. To ask a question, please type it into the question box located within your control panel. That's on the side of your screen, and we will host a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's presentation. This is also being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours, and you can find that option under the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast dropdown. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate the input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David, and good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, our guests were Chandler Vaughn from the Virginia Office of Broadband and Brandon Hernan from the Center of Geospatial Information Technology at Virginia Tech, who discussed mapping broadband coverage, universal access for all Virginia. The state of Virginia's partnership with Virginia Tech's Center for Geospatial Information Technology to build a highly accurate broadband maps for the state has resulted in securing an extra $250 million in BEAD funding for 60,000 additional locations through the FCC Broadband Map Challenge process. So if you missed last week's session, you can go to our website, and watch the replay. Today on Five for Breakfast, our guest is Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research at Park Associates, who's going to be discussing the smart home in 2025 opportunities and outlook. Jennifer manages research with Parks Associates process for producing high quality, relevant, and meaningful research. Jennifer also leads and advises on syndicated and custom research projects across all connected consumer verticals and guides questionnaire development for Parks Associates' extensive consumer analytics survey program. Jennifer is a certified focus group moderator with training from the Burke Institute. She earned her PhD in religion, politics, and society and has a master's in church-state studies from Baylor, and she earned her bachelor's in politics from Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. So welcome, Jennifer, and for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and we'll work those into the discussion. So with that, I will hand things over to Jennifer.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today and share a little bit of Parks Associates' view of what's happening in the smart home, where we've come, how things have grown over the past few years. Parks has been following really the home automation space for almost 40 years now. And so can really see some of the shifting trends, how consumers are using, what's happening with the industry players, and really what that means for you all in the fiber space and for internet service providers generally. And so there are a couple of themes that I wanted to hit on today. Very much interested in taking your questions as well. But first, on the next slide, I wanted to hit four main themes. So first being, just again, what has the growth in the smart home? On the next slide, you can see what is the growth in the smart home over the next couple of years, over the past couple of years. Who is buying smart home devices today, and what does that mean for how the market is changing? And if you're providing any smart home, home security, home energy management, home health, type value-added services, or working with those types of partners, what that means about how you speak about these types of solutions. And then also a very critical component of the smart home is how these things talk together or don't, and how you control things and who you trust to help you control the various devices in your home. And finally, that leads right into opportunities for internet service providers and those in the fiber space specifically. So on the next slide, I wanted to show you really a big, long kind of view of the growth of this market. This is basically a 10-year view I'm showing here of the growth in connected devices generally across US internet households. So the average US internet household has about 17 connected devices. Much of that is in the CE category, consumer electronics, computing, mobile, smart speakers. We count in this category, not in smart home, because consumers primarily tell us that they're using to listen to audio, to podcasts like this one, perhaps you listen to on your smart speaker at home. Entertainment, smart TVs, that sort of thing. Also, smart home devices, also connected health devices, connected fitness equipment, adding up to about 17 connected devices in the home. The more people you have in your household, the higher that number is. When you look at smart home devices specifically, so again, not counting smart speakers and displays, but lights, locks, thermostats, video doorbells, cameras, garage door openers, smart sprinklers is kind of an endless number of these core smart home devices. 45% of US internet households now own at least one smart home device. Now, one thing that's critical to know about this space that you can see on the next slide is that the smart home is what we consider a slow and steady growth market compared to other types of consumer electronics. So any individual category is still at about 20% of households or fewer having that device. Video devices like cameras and smart video doorbells, smart cameras and video doorbells are the best adopted devices. But if you can think about this category, right, nobody wants to replace their door lock or their garage door opener every 2 or 3 years, like you might your smartphone, right? So it's just a longer product life cycle. It's sort of this slow and steady growth type story. So with that, what are the hottest categories that we're seeing right now? On the next slide, I'm calling out 4 categories of devices. Video security devices are definitely the best adopted and highest bandwidth type devices, right? They're very core to the smart home value proposition of safety, security, peace of mind, also convenience, seeing who that person is that's coming to my door without necessarily having to get up if it's a solicitor or something like that. They are also a critical platform for services, video storage, security monitoring. They've been very successful devices in the home. Access control devices are kind of on a wave coming up. We did some testing recently of 90 unique different use cases that you could use smart home technologies for in the home. And I think 8 of the top 12 out of those 90 were all access related. Whether it be something like video, being able to see your front door or easily get into your home without having to get your keys out of your pocket, or that it's nighttime and you're going to bedtime mode and the doors automatically lock and make sure that you feel secure. So smart door locks, garage door openers, we're seeing a lot more interest in access control and a lot of innovation in that category, particularly this year. Other 2 categories I think are really notable are thermostats and smart lights. Thermostats are at about 17% adoption in US internet households, having at least one thermostat. For most households, you only need one, but some households do have several zones and might have multiple smart thermostats. This is a type of device that provides kind of immediate pragmatic value for a consumer that's not just there for the tech, right? A more middle market consumer, mass market, who is just trying to save money on their energy bills. And this might help them do that and actually pay for itself. That's a pragmatic type of value proposition that you can talk through to consumers. And actually, seniors have just about caught up with other age groups in their adoption of smart thermostats, which is pretty spectacular. You don't see that in a lot of technology categories. So generally, a broad swath of consumers starting to understand the smart thermostat value proposition. And finally, smart lights, a lot of innovation. It's not just about sort of light safety, it's also entertainment. There's rope lights, there's hexagon lights, there's all sorts of shapes and fun sizes. And we're finding that lights are kind of the top thing that people are starting to add to their security systems after they've bought the core system. They go back and add lights. So another kind of trending category to bring to your attention. Now, on the next slide, a critical aspect of the market and how it's shifting today is much increased competition in the brands. We track all the brands that are active in the US market in smart home, and we're seeing 91 unique brands of smart cameras, which is wow. It's a lot for the device categories, device manufacturers to think about. How do I stand out from the crowd? But also that means that a lot of these devices are becoming more affordable, which is driving the ability for more households to acquire these devices. Also, stay tuned. Apple's expected to make a much bigger play in smart home this year. They're expected to come out with a display. They have a smart speaker without a display, but they're expected to come out with a smart display this year, and also possibly their own smart camera. So that will shift things in a big way. So who is the buyer? On the next slide, going the other way, there we go. Who is using these devices has changed significantly over the last several years. So in 2018, before the pandemic, about 60% of smart home device owners self-identified as innovators. They're there for the tech. They're one of the first people who go out and buy new technology. That's down to just 11% of all smart home device owners today. Instead, an early majority type customer is making up the largest share of the market here, where they're not the first to go out and buy new devices. They actually wait until the devices are on several generations later, till it's kind of proven out tech, until they see some immediate value for their lives. And it's, you've got to kind of prove that your device is worth their spending, their precious, extra spend that they have to come into their household. So it has to be a very pragmatic, easy to see type benefit. So this is a big shift in who is using smart home devices today. And on the next slide, what we think that is really critical for anybody providing services to the home is that when you have a more mass market type customer, using these types of devices, they need support. They need help with installation. They need help understanding how to get the most out of their devices, how to configure settings, how to get things to talk with each other. And this is one kind of critical area that those who are, I saw in the poll today, there are several who are already offering these types of solutions that you're really well positioned to provide, which is kind of the support and the installation and even remote kind of management of what's happening with the devices in the home. Another thing that we find that's really interesting for the network on the next slide is that the more devices consumers have in the home, the more interested they are in advanced networking services of all types. So you can see here that once you own 3 or more smart home devices, you're interested in a premium networking monitoring service that proactively identifies and resolves issues on the network, cybersecurity monitoring, service that can help you optimize speed. Really, almost every advanced networking type feature that we've tested rises the more devices that you have in the home. And one of the critical issues that people, again, do have is that the devices kind of fall off the network and they don't know how to get them back on, and they just start to feel the pain a little bit more of having a connected household, and they need support. So another place that really maybe touches you all. Next couple slides, just to go through quickly. On the next one, I wanted to just talk a little bit about home control, because again, as more people get more devices in the household, how do you make them work together in any, semblance of cooperation, unless you're buying everything from the same provider, which may be the case if you're buying it from, let's say, a home security system and everything's designed to work together. That's fantastic, but a lot of times people might get a Ring video camera and a Nest thermostat and, a Chamberlain garage door opener. And then they try and use a voice assistant to patch it together, or they just don't try and patch them together. We do find that the more devices you have in the home, the more you're using a whole bunch of different platforms to control these devices. So we're very much not in sort of a unified controlled world right now. We have people using all sorts of different apps and control platforms to try and make this work, which makes it pretty painful. So we've asked consumers, well, would you like to have kind of this one app, this unified kind of control app that could control everything in your smart home? Of course, almost everybody says, yeah, that would be great. And we say, okay, well, who would you like to provide that to you, that type of app? And on the next slide, you can see that the number one type of provider is just the tech giants today. This is not actually a surprise, given that they're the most associated with smart home tech. People think smart home, they might think Alexa, again, Ring, Google, right? They think of these things, but actually it's not as skewed as we expected it to come back. And we have people, some people saying home security provider, mostly if they have a home security system, a smart home product manufacturer, and then other people raising their hand and say, actually, I'd like my internet service provider to provide this for me. And when we ask, well, why did you select internet service provider and not somebody else? They feel like it would, if they got a unified control app from their internet service provider, it would likely work with all my products and be easy to use. Another one I'm not showing here that rose kind of higher for internet service providers is that they felt like they would, be supported for the long term, as another kind of way that internet service providers could be a control player in the home. So on the next slide, one thing we've found recently, so why, again, does this matter for those in the, bringing connectivity to the home? We've watched, of course, the great kind of unbundling of the old traditional bundle, especially with the decline in pay TV and all of the great innovative new packages and bundles that everyone's bringing to the market to kind of replace that old, what the traditional bundle did in terms of customer acquisition and reducing churn, increasing stickiness, and trying to increase that, lifetime value of the subscriber. And we've started testing, well, how about these other types of value-added services, whether it be premium networking services, smart home type services, parental controls, streaming, a bundle with a streaming package, a bundle with a fun audio streaming package. You know, what does it do when we add some more value added services to the stack? And you can see actually that it increases the more the bundles increase the net promoter scores. And in particular, I'm highlighting the fiber for the fiber players here. When we say, okay, when we identify for consumers, what type of internet do you receive? Are you using it standalone? And this is the only thing that you get from that provider. Your NPS is right around a 10, just not negative, which is pretty good for internet service providers. The legacy internet service providers tend to get negative NPS scores. But then once you get to a bundle where you're getting not just traditional services, but new value-added service types, your NPS goes up and up and up. So I think that's pretty compelling. On the next slide, just wanted to call out that there are all sorts of different services that could be bundled. At the very top, you've got kind of the traditional services that wind up getting bundled with an internet play, pay TV, mobile service, and home phone, streaming video, a little bit newer to the bundle. But then you have this set underneath that I think really speaks to the ability to be a player in this connected home ecosystem by offering things like technical support monitoring, home security monitoring with cameras and sensors, a more of a smart Wi-Fi experience, and actually smart home devices, more defined separately from security monitoring there to be like lights and locks and thermostats and that sort of thing. So really interested seeing a couple of the fiber players out there definitely offering home security today, and some of our data does bear out that some of these newer value-added services are quite popular with your users. So just to end there on the next slide, or my final slide, and then I'd love to take your questions. One thing that I wanted to leave you with, what are the smart home players grappling with this year as some of the biggest trends that they're thinking through, and might help you think through how you might see an opportunity here, is they're trying to figure out how to serve an increasingly mainstream end user. And those providing internet connectivity, by definition, pretty much serve the mainstream. You guys very much know how to talk to a broad swath of the market as opposed to specific demographics. How can consumer IoT business units operate profitably? Everybody's looking for partners that can provide some kind of long-term sustainability. What's my competitive edge in the AI arms race? I'm sure you're all thinking about that as well. How do standards efforts unlock opportunity and competition? They're looking at what market segments are right for expansion and how to leverage their own assets to serve other ecosystem players. So everybody in the smart home market is definitely open for partnerships, and they're eagerly watching what's happening in the broadband space as well to make sure that they understand what those trends, how those trends might impact their businesses. So with that, hopefully a broad view of where we're at in the smart home market today, and love to take some questions.
Yeah, Jennifer, super interesting. With CES just fairly recent, and everything was AI and quantum at CES. What can we expect with AI in smart home?
Yeah, so everyone is talking in smart home a little bit less around generative AI, which you hear the most about around creation of videos and creation of audio streams and maybe deepfakes and all that sort of thing that's really impacting the entertainment industry. In smart home, it's a little bit more about what we hear termed agentic AI, which is how can the various devices and sensors in your home understand context and identity and intention better to make smarter decisions on your behalf, so that a light goes out when it's supposed to go out, and that's helpful to you, and not it turns out when you're in the middle of cooking, right? So really to try and take the smart home value proposition to its next level, where it feels like your home really knows you and is personal to you. And then also how to do a little bit more of that at the edge. So when we think about how things are shifting from the cloud back to the edge, and fiber being a very, very kind of reliable backbone to provide maybe a hybrid kind of cloud edge strategy in the smart home. A lot of people thinking about how they can do more AI actually at the edge to quell concerns from the consumer about data privacy and security issues. So that was the big talk around AI in the smart home at CES.
So, the service providers now and the vendors to service providers are looking more at improving the in-home experience. It's not good enough just to bring a gigabit to the side of the house, but how do you be able to distribute that bandwidth within the home? And you, in addition to devices you had mentioned, you have your Peloton and other devices that are using bandwidth. Are you seeing any smart home device companies partnering with ISPs where the ISP doesn't have to service a product? What are you guys seeing?
Okay, so where a device manufacturer doesn't have to service the product if it's going off the network, for instance, and helping it get back up, we definitely hear that from ISPs that they, for better or worse, are getting these tech support calls, even though it has nothing to do with the service that they're providing, and it's sort of overwhelming to them. We have seen, some players very much up their game and doing proactive monitoring themselves. We've seen that actually from the security industry, where there's new security panels that actually include a router in the panel that gives the security security dealer essentially their own view into the network, and if devices are falling off of the network, they can proactively go in with the homeowner's consent ahead of time, that they have that ability to do this, that they can go in and resolve problems remotely because they have kind of their own slice of the network that can see the issues of things falling off the network and coming back on, for instance. So I thought that was a really innovative way to put the onus of tech support where it kind of belongs and give another player the tool set to do that.
Another question from our audience is, are you seeing any movement towards consumers using the TV as the hub and interface for smart home?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say that at the moment, smart speakers and actually just the app on your phone is the most common way that people are still controlling devices kind of on a one-to-one basis. But we have definitely seen big movement of getting kind of the hub to the TV, primarily led by Samsung. They have their smart things kind of hub based into the TV. LG is doing something similar, and LG just acquired a company that's sort of like Smart Things that has a very open ecosystem to it called Homey. We also see that Roku has entered the smart home. So if you think of Roku as being a streaming player, think about them actually as wanting to be an operating system for the home, because they now have a home security system and smart home devices. So Amazon's both on the home and on the TV. Google has Google TV and also their Nest products. So there's a lot that we're seeing crossing over into the TV. It's not showing up as the primary control point yet for consumers, but we see a lot of the players really making competitive moves right now to put those that kind of infrastructure in place to make it possible.
Yeah, I evidently seem to be the controller in our house because everybody's calling me to turn on the pool heater or to adjust the thermostat or to start the car or whatever, because evidently no one else puts these apps on their phone. So yesterday I met with AARP here in DC, and we were talking about 50 and older, how important it is to be able to age in place, and this technologies with wearables and being able to allow their children to monitor with video cameras and stuff. So how does smart technology play with the older demographic, and how do they're going to be the slow adopters? So how do you help older generations adopt this technology?
Yeah, so first of all, AARP has done a fantastic job kind of bringing awareness to the tech community and investors that, hey, seniors need to benefit, not just can, but need to benefit from the great innovation that's taking place and oftentimes developed for younger tech savvy consumers. Let's bring some investment to the senior space as well. First of all, seniors are already using smartphones pretty ubiquitously at this point, which is fantastic. Now, there's still a lot of gaps of connectivity in the household, and depending on your age group in that senior, is a big range of ages and capabilities there. But the primary thing is it's not about the technology, it's about the benefit. What does this actually mean to my life? You don't get anywhere really with older consumers saying you need this device. Well, they've been doing just fine without that device, thank you, or that's what they'll tell you, right? It's, hey, this could help you pragmatically do that. It's a very much a pragmatic conversation, and that this is meant to help you and serve you, not a device that is being forced on you. Or also there's oftentimes a little bit of fear. And so it's about what's happening in your life. So again, for the smart thermostat, the fact that seniors
Jennifer,
are
hey,
taking, yeah,
we really, sorry we're out of time, but we really
no problem.
appreciate.
Looks like Gary might have gotten problem with his connection here, but we'll go ahead and we'll wrap things up. Jennifer, I just want to thank you again for taking time for sharing this with us. Great, interesting stuff. We will be back next week. And on next week's episode, we'll be talking with Peter Supino, who is the Senior Analyst and Managing Director at Wolf Research, and he'll be talking about broadband net adds update. So once again, thank you, Jennifer and Parks Associates. We really appreciate you taking time to join us today and sharing with our members. And thank you all for joining. We look forward to seeing you on next week's. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.